If colouring with pencils scares you, then today's video is all for you. I've got 5 of my favourite tips to share and hopefully take your coloured pencil colouring to the next level. And don't go anywhere because I also have a bonus tip for you today. And this is the inspiration for today's video. Altenew are releasing a set of woodless coloured pencils. There's 32 of their most gorgeous colours in this set, and isn't the packaging adorable? I have decided to give these pencils a try. I usually colour with the Prismacolor pencils, so I'm going to be really interested to see how these go. They're also a waxed base pencil, and that just gives you lots of wonderful blending options. So I will walk you through all of that as we head along our little colouring journey today. So let's get started. So tip number 1, to get a more natural look, why not try no line colouring? Don't worry, I'm going to walk you through it. I've already stamped out a couple of floral images with some really light ink. I've used the Craft Your Life project kit from Altenew called Elegant Motifs. It's a beautiful floral stamp set, and you could use any floral images that you have. If you've got an image that you've stamped before, it is actually easier if you've already coloured it before with no line colouring. Now I did use the Misty Moore ink to stamp my image. You just need to make sure that you choose an ink that's going to end up sort of hidden in amongst the image that you're colouring, so light enough that you won't see it in the end, but dark enough that you can see it while you're colouring. Alright, so I've chosen a couple of the beautiful colours here from Altenew. The Peach Perfect is the palest peach colour, and then the Coral Bliss. So what I'm doing here is just adding my colour to one petal at a time. Typically I start by adding my lighter colour to my petals and then come in where the shaded areas are going to be with a bit of the darker colour. And tip number 2, you can try a product like Gamsol to get a nice smooth look. This is a really easy way to blend your colours together. So with the 2 colours laid down together, I can just use a blending stump and pick up some of the Gamsol on the end of that. You don't want to over wet the blending stump, otherwise it will wet your paper, but I mean obviously it's going to dry out really quickly. Now this is a similar product or same as the odorless mineral spirits, and by adding it to the waxed base pencil it just gives a lovely sort of blended look. One thing to note with the Gamsol is that it can actually lift some of the colour away, so I don't use it all the time when I'm building up my layers. I often just use it on the base layer of my images, and I always like to make sure that I leave sort of a lighter area, like an area of reflection on the petals, and by colouring each petal separately it just allows the petals to look more natural. And I'll often try and make it look like the light's reflecting in different areas. I don't colour each petal exactly the same. Sometimes you can tell by the way the petals sit on a flower where they're going to be a bit darker. Other times you can't really tell. Typically it doesn't really matter. And we are making cards here. We're not doing works of art that are going to sit on the walls for many years. We look at these techniques like no line colouring and think that they are out of our reach, and they are not hard to do. It just takes a little bit of practice, and don't get frustrated. It's not going to look perfect straight away. And you'll be surprised what the end result will look like. And my next tip is to build up layers, and you need to do this slowly, not pressing too hard on your pencils. Let's see how it goes. So this is probably my most important tip today. This can take your flower from great to phantasmagorical. I can't tell you how many layers I probably used on this flower. There's maybe about 8 altogether. I basically did that first layer of colour on every petal. I came in again with another layer of colour. This time I used the same 2 colours and just sort of worked on my shaded areas. Do not press hard on your pencils. You do need to use a paper that's not too smooth. I mean, when I say not too smooth, this is Nina 80-pound cardstock. It is a very smooth cardstock, but it's not like a shiny, like a Yupo paper. Not that you'd probably try and colour on that with colour pencils, but it is going to have some tooth in the paper. But once that tooth of the paper, so once all the little sort of indentations and grooves in the paper that you really can't see with the naked eye, once they're full, you're not going to be able to add any more colour to your image. And if you have coloured with your pencils very heavily, or you've got to a point where you can't add any more colour, you'll know exactly what I mean. So I really pressed quite lightly on my pencils, and I found that these woodless wax-based pencils were a lot of fun to colour with. I'm still getting used to them. You do find that you get used to a certain product, and I have been colouring with my Prismacolor pencils now for many years. I did try the Polychromos, you know, the oil-based pencils, and I didn't have as much luck with those. They do colour beautifully. They are a really nice pencil. I just didn't bond with them. I think it was the actual colours that I had that I wasn't really happy with. But I tell you what, these Altenew colours are so pretty that I'll be happy to colour with these. And because they're a wax-based pencil, I could certainly mix them with my other products and be able to stretch my pencils even further. Right, so I did come in and colour the leaves as well. I just chose a couple of the greens. I did mean to mention that you may have noticed I keep a little piece of scrap paper off to the side while I'm working. When I say working, I mean relaxing and colouring, because that's what we're doing. We're meant to be having fun here. And that way I can just test my colours off to the side, make sure that I'm happy with them before I commit to the actual image itself. Because I don't want to have to start again, not with coloured pencils. They are slow to work with compared to other mediums, but the results are amazing. And if you're going to make a special card for someone and they're going to appreciate the time that you put into it, then this is certainly going to be one of those cards for someone special. And tip number 4 is to add your details back in with the pencil after you've finished your basic colouring. Now typically I like to do this with the colours that I'm using, and it'll often be the darkest colour of the mix of colours that I'm using, but sometimes I will come in with a different colour. So maybe I might use like a shading colour, maybe a grey or a purple, something like that. But say for the leaves here, I've just grabbed the darkest green and I'm adding some of the edges of the leaves in, as well as some of the veins. And my next tip is to use a different colour to help add shading. So this is very similar to how I colour with my alcohol markers as well. I will often come in and add some different colours in amongst the base colours that I'm using, and whether I want to do that as a shadow, so like I'm doing here on the leaves. But I actually did come in on the flower here and add a, you know, like a yellow ochre, and you really can't tell when you look at the flowers, but that colour is in there and just adds a bit of reflection, light and depth. So it's pretty much just having a look at your colours and how you want your finished image to look. Then you've got such a variety of ways to sort of mix it up. You can come in and add some highlights when you're colouring with pencils by using an eraser, just to sort of pick away areas that you think might look a bit too dark. And those little electric erasers are really good for that. Or you can come in with a white pencil to add some highlights. So there's lots of different ideas on how you can change up how your image looks. And it's just going to be a matter of playing with your supplies and being comfortable with the finished result. Typically I just keep going until I'm happy. And here's my bonus tip, and luckily I didn't have to do this on my flowers today, but if you're not happy with your colouring, your no-line colouring, and you have left your stamp in the MISTI, you can easily re-stamp it using a black ink. So I did colour up my second flower pretty much exactly the same. The great thing about these project kits is they come with everything you need. This one has the coordinating dies. It also has a 3D embossing folder and some stencils, but I wanted to focus on the colouring today. Now I did keep my card very clean and simple. I decided just to add like a coloured sentiment. I've used the Marshland ink and a sentiment from the Fancy Greetings, and then just attached my flowers to the front of the card with some sequins. Now I have linked all the products that I've used below in the description, and I've also got a full list of the products at my blog. You can find that linked below as well. It has all the pencil colours that I've used as well. Hopefully you're inspired to try some pencil colouring and learnt something here today. If you did, I'd really appreciate it if you clicked on the like button, and if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate your visits here, and I've got a couple more videos linked here to inspire. Till next time, happy paper crafting. Bye.